Blink Twice is a psychological horror from first-time director Zoe Kravitz, and it takes a look at toxic masculinity in a tone and approach that is not too dissimilar to films such as Get Out. The film sees Naomi Aki play Frida, a nail stylist and cocktail waitress who encounters tech billionaire Slater King, played by Channing Tatum, at a function, which results in her and her friend Jesh, Aaliyah Shawkat, being invited to King's private island to spend some time partying and relaxing. On arrival, they have their phones removed for secrecy and join the other guests in a holiday experience with fine dining, massages, relaxation, and drug-infused partying elements. Gifts of clothes and perfumes ensuring that they're always at their best. However, Frida and Jess begin to feel uneasy about the activities going on, feeling that something isn't quite right on the island, and so begins a spiralling journey of revelations as the secrets of King's past indiscretions start to come to light. There's a smart approach to the manner in which this film plays out. From the opening moments showing us headlines referring to King having to apologise for past indiscretions, before we move to a simple structure opening as Frida and Jess encounter the billionaire and find a rather charming persona in front of them. However, the linear structure of the film starts to break up once the partying starts on the island, with erratic jumps forward and back in time in a very disorientating fashion, leading to some confusion as to what events are actually happening, with scattered dreamlike moments interspersed, suggesting that Frida has memory gaps of the nights of partying, as well as a curiously confusing encounter with a worker on the resort who calls her Red Rabbit. Initially jarring, this muddled second act swiftly becomes quite essential, as it puts the audience in the same drug-addled confusion that the characters are in. And as the pair of friends begin to remember moments, we also start to piece together the mystery of what is actually happening. And by the third act, things move back to a linear structure for reasons that are linked to key events in the story, as the final half hour descends into violent fury. This is a sharp film with a fine balance of dark oppression to humour, which makes use of shooting techniques to really convey the contrasts between the summertime party atmosphere before conveying similar moments in a more foreboding and sinister way. The primary casting of Aki and Tatum works beautifully, with an attraction between the two established early on, feeling genuine before the cracks start to show and true intentions and betrayals come to light, making them perfect enemies at the same time. Tatum gets to play sinister here, and even just the simple act of him deciding where a chair should be placed in a room becomes a tension-filled moment. Around the pair, there's a wealth of wonderful names, including Christian Slater, who's joyous on screen as one of King's entourage, Vic, snapping away photos of the partying group throughout the course of events. Gina Davis lends able support as King's assistant Stacey, and Adria Arjona stands out amongst the remaining set of guests as Sarah, a fierce-minded survivalist who starts to realise something's wrong and pairs with Frida after Jess goes missing and everyone forgets she ever existed. Whilst not entirely unpredictable, the film is off-kilter in approach enough that even if you think you know what's going to come, you can never be entirely sure. And despite not being completely fresh and original, Blink Twice does establish Kravitz as a skilled filmmaker who gets the most out of her cast, making the film a welcoming calling card for the director, who I, for one, am certainly looking forward to following the career of going forward. This first part of a new animated adaptation of Alan Moore's iconic graphic novel volume is an adaptation that stays true to the source material and simply presents the tale as told within the comic book, only in an animated format. With a screenplay by J. Michael Straczynski and directed by Brandon Vietti, who cut his teeth working on various other DC animated shows and movies such as The Batman, Brave and the Bold and Under the Red Hood, this was certainly in capable hands. Split into two parts, with the second part due to land sometime next year, this first part covers the first 6 issues of the original comic book run, bringing us into this world of a twisted 1985 reality where costume vigilantes were once revered but soon fell from grace. When one of the early heroes, the comedian, is killed in suspicious circumstances, the vigilante named Rorschach pieces together the trail of clues that open up a conspiracy and a corruption that draw other past heroes, including the almost deity-like Dr. Manhattan, into the mix. If you've read the comic, all seen the Zack Snyder film. There's nothing really new here that you won't already know. Snyder's changes only really impacted the latter parts of the tale, which this first chapter doesn't delve into. Much like the DC adaptations of other beloved comic stories, such as the various Batman animated movies of recent history, this is a pure adaptation, which retains the look of the source material, albeit with a slick animated style and subtle detail changes that serve well to enhance the tale visually. The voice cast all lend their parts well, with names such as Katie Sackhoff, Matthew Rhys, Titus Welliver, Troy Baker, and Rick D. Wasserman, giving depth of character to their representations of the core heroes. What this adaptation does do really well, however, is the inclusion of the comic book within the comic book, Tales of the Black Freighter. Those who've read the source material will know how that sub-story breaks up the main story, but also has parallels to the events going on that are significant. When Snyder's extended cut of the film reinserted those chapters, it kind of broke that film somewhat, as it jarred against the flow of the main story. Comics and films are two very separate mediums, and I did worry about how they would include those cutaways without damaging the structure of the film. Rest assured, the manner in which they include those elements not only works, but it serves to strengthen their purpose to the overall story. Instead of simply breaking away from the core narrative, panels and dialogue from Black Freighter are intercut with events transpiring in the main world story, highlighting the parallels that were being drawn by Moore when he crafted his original story. It's a smart way to include the subtale without it interrupting the main narrative. Watchmen Chapter One is a faithful adaptation of the comic, retaining the essence of both Alan Moore's sharp writing and Dave Gibbons' iconic visual style that does the job it set out to do perfectly. Roll on Chapter 2.